So if we could have our panelists join in and accompany little old me. There's Dr. Kalei. Here we are. And we also have, yes, Miss Sami Akuna, aka Miss Coco.
Can you turn the sound down?
And Anakala Kealoha. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo. Okay, so we are going to start because welcome to another installment of Kūkā Kikī, where we get to kuka a little bit, we get to kiki a little bit about everything that is Kanaka and that is queer, anything and everything in between. So mahalo for being here. Aloha Lā Hoʻihoʻi Ea to all of you celebrating festivities, which I hope all of you are. And we wanted to create and maintain space for our Kanaka, who are, as we refer to it as the Māhūi, people that have experiences with the identity of Mahu, or have been very in line with it. And we wanted to highlight different voices today that have seen a lot of change within the past few years, within the Māhūi, and then from outside supporting inward and inward out. In, out, in, here we are. So before we start, let's have a little maybe ho'olauna. I'm sure you guys saw on the things, but I'll start with Mama Coco. Give us a little something. Who are we?
Who are we today?
Which character? What is it?
I am one of the servants to our queen today.
Period.
I am her custodian, and I'm passing the kapepas all over the island.
Yes. New Peppa who?
That's what I'm up to today. Aloha.
Aloha, mahalo. Let's go to Dr. Kalei.
Aloha, aloha kako. So happy to be here with everybody. I'm here in the land of the Duwamish people and the Coast Salish people of the northwest part of Turtle Island. I honor always the people of the lands where I am located, but always in my heart and my soul, my spirit, Kanaka Wiwi. And my background, I just want to acknowledge my background, Hilo, my place of birth, and such a beautiful part of all of us, the island of Hawaiʻi, Moko Keawe. And so honored to be here, really. That's me today, is so honored to be here. Mahalo.
Absolutely. We're so honored to hear from you. And especially with Hilo being featured, at the beginning of the month, that we finally see Mary Monarch again. So amazing. Thank you to everyone who's worked on that. It was amazing to see after a year. So mahalo. And last but certainly not least, with the luscious, beautiful hair, Anakala Kealoha. He's figuring out his Zoom and he's like, I can know how to mute, Zoom, video, everything.
Ku ika pono, hoki ai ka mauna, ku ha'aheo. Aloha mai kako, aloha. I think we've got a panel all from the Big Island. My ohana comes from Honaunau, the Kelekolio ohana, although I was born and raised here on Oahu. But who am I today? It's who I was yesterday and the day before. And it's been a journey from back in the 50s and the 60s to find my identity and then to nurture it till today I'm here with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so funny. So speaking of that, I was listening to or my partner was listening to Manaleo, Lipine Manaleo, talking about Honaunau and the Kelekolio, and then my family Kahikina, part of them were Hanaid and Puʻuanahulu, and they're talking about all the Kona communities, and then I'm from Hamakua area. It's this whole thing. So perhaps there's always another reason greater than us why we are hood, for specific reasons. So mahalo, I'm so excited. But before we get into our questions, let's just acknowledge first all of the Hanauna ihala of the Māhūi that have stood strong. Kuha'ahio, as you said, Anakala Kealoha. in being and owning and celebrating what Mahu is. And it's so amazing to be able to have these conversations because I don't think we have enough of those. And so I want to thank all the hanauna, all the kupuna, all the makua, all the keiki that have and are currently experiencing. If you notice our hashtags, we have hashtag iconic, which comes from the word iconic. And that was brought to us by Kim Kampak, who is the partner of Joy Inamoto. So we want to mahalo you for those words. And then all of our lovely Olelo Mahu speakers who come up with all these amazing things like Māhūi, just to honor the language, the culture, and history that is us. So this is the reason why we can be here today. And it's also, this panel is also a love letter to our makua, our kupuna, our people who have fought for us to be here, maybe not on Zoom, we didn't foresee that, but today, speaking about these issues and these kumuhana, it's amazing. Okay, great. So we came up with some questions, and in the audience, if you're with us, please feel free to go in the chat, jot down some questions if you're feeling, inspired or anything. Let us know. If you feel like you want to voice it, let us know if you want to voice a question. And our techie side, mahalo to Kumunoi, Lani Gudiro Papua, and Makamai Sniffin for being our techie side. Mahalo to Ihilani, mahalo to my partner, Kahikina Camburn, for just being support and making sure we can all be here today. Because it takes a lot just to be on the Zoom. Anyway, let's go reverse. Let's just switch it up. Huli here. Ana Kealoha, talk to me about your relationship with the Māhūi. Where did you find yourself like, what is that word? What is your relation with it? What was that kind of, or you finding your way to the Māhūi?
Well, I think most Mahu in their youth, growing up, know that there's something there. There is a difference. You recognize it in how people treat you, how you see the world, and you know that you're not the same.
Yeah.
And for some, it is a tussle of, where do I fit in? The word Mahu is neither male, neither female. It's that third gender. But growing up in the 50s and 40s, well, starting in the 40s and 50s, it's expressed derogatorily. You hear that as people shout it to. Fortunately, no one ever called it to my face, but you hear other people referring to it, and you think to yourself, okay, maybe that's not something you want to be. But in your now, that's who you are. And so it's that struggle of coming, that whole process of coming out, realizing that there's nothing that you can do to suppress it. And those who do, unfortunately, pay the price for it. And there are still, I'm sure there are those that are out there, even though we've come a long way, who still deny who they are. But because we didn't have a hui back then, and being Mahu actually is an individual process. It's a personal process, and you have to find your way to find that. And so it was like, okay, I'm ready to express it. I'm ready to find others. You think that you may be the only one. So that was it. Coming out in the 60s, as I said in my bio, I actually said, okay, I'm going to go to a gay bar. And so in 1969, I went to the apartment, and I was astounded. I was, shocked that there were other people there enjoying themselves, feeling normal. And so I came back the next weekend and the following weekend. Soon, I found a group that that spoke to me, and I was able to go from there to that self-recognition, self-expression, and then following on, recognizing it, and then living a life in the Māhūi. There were select, of our own friends, always meeting each other, going to the beach, going to the bars, And it became stronger to the point where you can no longer deny it and keep others from being a part of it. So in 1976 in San Francisco, when I met someone and we thought we were going to be together, I wrote a letter to my mother and I told her, Mom, I think you would be happy to know that I'm going to share my life with someone, but the only thing that it's another male, you know. So she called, she cried on the phone, and she said, you know, and I wanted her to be happy for me. And so when she cried, I said, why are you crying? She said, it's because it's going to be hard for you. She said, I still love you, and I you know, you'll always be my son, but I know it'll be a hard journey. And but once she said that, it made it easier. So that was
yeah. Hearing that it's not being Māhūi that's unlovable or anything of that's why I'm crying. It's the fact that the society we live in right now will see you as different and will treat you differently because of just who you are, genealogically speaking. Yeah. And we've experienced that as Kanaka, just as Kanaka ourselves. And then on top of that, being other on top of being Kanaka Māhūi is like, oh, it's a lot. Yeah. So mahalo for sharing that. And thank you for being strong and just owning it. That's great. Mahalo. Let's go to Dr. Kalei. What was your experiences with finding yourself in the Māhūi?
Well, you know, I was thinking, you know, Uncle and I grew up in the same generation, right? The 50s. And so our stories are so similar. You know, your story, Uncle, is almost exactly the same as mine, except my mother took to the bed for like 1 week after I told her, after I came out to her, right? I mean, she basically, I mean, I can tell the story now with only a little bit tears in my eyes, but you know, from the 70s up till now, I mean, for at least 20 years, every time I told that story, I would cry because I was so close to my parents, like probably for you too, yeah, Uncle. And when, so I'm just gonna go back to, you know, growing up in Hilo, I never knew it. I think there was like one Māhūi that worked at the gas station in Kailua Kona. Like everybody knew her, you know, because it was like, you know, that one, yeah. And of course she was Hawaiian too, yeah. So part of it is like, I was so, so fascinated by her because it was like, is that one boy or one girl? And then for me, I was saying to myself, am I a boy or a girl? And I just I had so much confusion, but part of it is I never knew anybody else, you know, who I thought felt like me. Like I'm sure had plenty others, but I never knew who they were. So, and then, you know, I was always called tomboy from small kid time because I played with the boys, played with the girls. And then you get to that point about 7th grade when all your girlfriends that you were so in love with, you realize like, they don't love you, they love the boys. So then I kind of thought, so this is my coming out for me was realizing, I think sometime in high school, I didn't want to be with a boy. And the whole idea is that, you know, I don't know if you fall in love first, but I don't know, you have sex or do something with the boys and then you get married. And I thought, I never want to marry a boy. And I thought, why would you want to marry? They're so stupid. They act goofy. They say mean things. Like they make fun of girls, you know. They like look under your skirt. You know, they do all kind of stupid things. And I was like, who would want to be like that, right? So, but part of it, I think, is my trying to come to grips with the fact that I just never had those erotic feelings about guys, you know. But I always had those erotic and companionable feelings about all my girlfriends until they all left me for their boyfriends.
Right, of course.
Yeah, so I always kind of felt like, and then I finally decided like I was never, now this one makes me cry. I decided I was never going to ever love anybody. Wow. Because I thought being with somebody in an intimate way, even though I never thought like my parents were not so intimate, they were married to, I don't know, 60 years or whatever it was. But I kind of felt like you're supposed to be in love with somebody that you end up being with and getting married to. Yes. And I thought, if I can't fit into that male-female kind of thing, boyfriend, girlfriend, then it must mean that I'm never going to love anybody. And it wasn't even that nobody was going to love me. I thought I was never good. I don't know how to have that feeling and that something was wrong with me. So that was my first realization that I knew I was different, but then all of a sudden I realized that something was kind of wrong with me, you know, that I couldn't love anybody if I couldn't love a boy. What was I going to do?
Right.
So it was just a very hard time, really, really hard time. And I think, you know, and this is one of the stories I think we all should tell, which is for many of us, you got to go away to come out.
Mm.
I maybe I could have come out in Hilo, you know, in the 60s, but I doubt it. I doubt it. It would have been very hard for me because of my family.
Mm.
So I knew I was going to go away, and I never knew I was going away to come out. But you know, within a year of moving to Wisconsin to go to college, I realized like I could love somebody and they could love me back. And guess what? Was one girl. So it was my first girlfriend, who is actually, you know, it's been 50 years we've been friends. And that was my first person I came out with. And that's when I told my parents, and my mother like started crying and then went to the bed and she didn't get up for like 1 week.
Right.
And then my father said, like, you know, you hurt your mother's feelings. So, you know, yeah. So my father's Hawaiian, my mom was Japanese, yeah. And then, so of course she was like, oh no, how shame, you know. Yeah. And then my father was like, you made mommy really feel bad. And then I just went away. We never spoke for about a year. And then I don't exactly know how it happened, but then we came back together again, and we just healed over that time. And I think it was my father, it was the Hawaiian side, yeah. My father said, I hope that you would always come home again, but I never knew if you would. So I knew that for my father, he felt differently about this than my mother. Mm. And I think it was the Hawaiian thing. Like he said, like, you know, we're not going to break up over this. Right, our family not going to break up over this because we still love you. So that was my story. But, you know, wow. And a lot of us still suffer today. You know, as Uncle said, so many still suffer. So I hope through this panel, you know, in our Māhūi and lāhui, that we love each other, you know, and we let us love whomever we're going to love, because that is what it means to be free. And that's what it means to be pono, that we love each other. And our ohana is the most important thing. And that means we love each other for all that we are, right? We respect each other. And so mahalo, all you folks for making this panel.
Oh, I just like crying. You're like, yeah, ready for goal. Yeah, but truly, we say about, you know, that freedom is that ea, to be you and be Kānaka, be, you know, and it's hard with this word queer because it's an English word that kind of describes in an English world or in a Western world that if you are not, what you were saying, Dr. Kalei, if you are not heteronormative and you don't live this kind of Christian nuclear life of man and woman is the only thing, and that's how you can live your cookie cutter white bread life of this is what life is. Anything outside of that is just null, doesn't exist. You are worthless. You are not enough. You're not human if you do not value these things. And I so resonate that, and I haul you for that, because it was a lot for me to just be like, I don't even know what life outside of what America or this society expects of me. And I think a lot of times we think about that with Ea too, of like, I only know what an American occupied life as a Kanaka looks like. I have no idea what a newly sovereign Hawaiʻi with all sorts of different sovereignties, food, you know, different things. It's just so amazing to see that. I think the Māhūi can really be an example of stepping outside of what society expects of you and to really own it and just say, hey, world's not ending. We're okay. Not devil child, but like, let's have a tea party. Let's have a Kūkā Kikī and like have some fun and some laughs, period. So mahalo for that. Yeah. And again, certainly last but not least, I'm sure Mama Coco has tons of knowledge. Just be like, boom, 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 boom. What was your experience?
Well, first I like to acknowledge the two panelists that I'm able to share this space with for kind of laying that foundation, which was probably gravel back at that time. And and as I came through, I think as a Māhūi, we're always laying that foundation. from dirt to gravel to pavement to concrete. There's always someone that will always follow after you, and there's always someone that will follow before you. So it's always keeping that path strong and healthy and secure and smooth. Sometimes it gets a little rocky. There's a couple potholes and we might fall and trip into those holes. But then hopefully there'll be someone there to pick you up, or you can get yourself out of that hole, or until somebody is able to fix that. So just being ma'a to this path that we're always constantly not fighting, but loving and cultivating and curating for our Māhūi and the lāhui as well. I think in the generation that I grew up, it was a little, I don't want to say I stuck out. I just want to say that my light was a little brighter. My light was just a little brighter than others. And we did migrate a lot. We lived in Makaha on Maui. But then Hilo is my home. My father's family comes from Kealoha up in Holualoa. But really it was when I was in my teens is when we moved from Ka'u to Hilo. And that's when I found my people. Because when I was
like, here you go.
Oh, there they are. Because I was in the Macnut farms in Ka'u, up in Holualoa. I was just living my best life as a Kanaka, just, walking a mile up the Mauna to get to the bus stop and then catching the bus, and same thing in Ka'u, walking down to the Macnut fields, catching the Macnut truck with all the Filipino migrant workers to school, and then finally getting to Hilo, where my people were in this kind of social area in school, which was right in the middle of school, which is kind of a courtyard. And they used to have all the benches, and it's kind of reminiscent of all the little cliques that we see in movies. There were the band geeks, there were the nerds, and there was the Kanakas, and then there were these shiny, glittery people. The shiny, glittery people with crimped hair and lots of fabulous 80s fashion.
Yes.
And I immediately just gravitated towards them. So I'm very thankful for having, I guess, ease in my life. I don't think I came out necessarily. I think I was just navigating through all these spaces as a person I am today. And when I hear that word saying mahu in that kind of derogatory sense, my response is always like, tell me something I don't know, or thank you for recognizing my Kanaka-ness in my olala Hawaii, because that shows me that you know who I am as a Kanaka. So thank you. You're paying me a compliment by calling me mahu. It's not derogatory to me. I will never deflect that word. I will always embrace it, absorb it. And then having kind of a sisterhood in Hilo, and we're like Marina Del Rey. I mean, we grew up in Hilo, up in Kaumana, and then I also went away to the Americas to explore. I went to San Francisco, did that thing, and that was kind of that was like in the 80s, like late 80s, 1980s. It was during the pandemic of the HIV crisis and AIDS. And I was quite young and had no knowledge of that. And then I came back home and went into the theater where my people were, my tribe. And I never looked back after that. My kayako, or my kumu, my dance teacher, Ernest Theophilus Morgan, was teaching at the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And he had taken me under his wing, and I started dancing in the modern classes at the university, just as not as a student. And then I was in Jesus Christ Superstar production at the Hilo Theater at UH Hilo. and that was it. After I saw Jesus and the Superstars, I was done.
Were you Mary Magdalene?
She was Myrna Magdalene.
She was Mary, that's for sure. Oh,
I love
so
it.
Yeah.
Mahalo. We can see what you were saying with that road, that in different generations. I love this idea of gravel and the idea of then kind of filling in those gaps and then filling the next gap, so that we know that after we're gone, as Dr. Noinoe Silva says, the mo'oku ohau consciousness, we have this kind of ike to look beyond generations and generations, 40 generations down the line, and be like, okay, well, how are my actions going to affect those people? Not just, I'm going to live my best life and I'm just going to do me and I'm going to have all the accomplishments. It's really a kind of a perception shift with Kanaka to think about, I'm doing this so someone else doesn't have to, and they can do something even more specific and more geared towards, just that where we got to do the big stuff, and then as you go, you can just do the little maintained stuff, like in building a heiau or a kahua. So loving this. I don't know if you guys seen the chat, but we're getting a lot of messages from on Facebook saying that this is resonating. Everyone is mahaloing you guys for your ike, you folks. So mahalo. Now we can Kūkā Kikī for hours on end, because that was only the first question. We have like lots, but since we're on Lā Hoʻihoʻi Ea, let's talk a little bit about Ea. And so with your experiences as being Mahu and your experiences in the Māhūi, what does Ea look like to each of you, or what does it feel like? What would you want it to be? Where have you seen it? Just the idea of Ea. How does that resonate in your life? Anakala unmuted. I think he has someone on Ea.
I think that we had the Ea prior to annexation, and that was taken away from us, both as a lāhui and a Māhūi, because prior to annexation, our culture, as far as I can tell through Mo'olelo and stuff, Mahu had a vaunted place in our society. They were kumuhula, they were la'au lapa'au, they were healers. So, and if you read through our history, the written history, the oral histories, tell stories of Loni Kamakahiki and Kapaihi, that relationship. And, while it doesn't say anything about sex, it does talk about how the love of one man for another and to support and always be there. You go back even further, Kealoha Pele and Hopoi, it's not, it's the text is there, the story is there. It doesn't have to be obvious, and maybe it wasn't obvious in our society, but there was a place for them. And I don't think that, as Dr. Kalei was saying, that it wasn't exclusive. The Hawaiian community found a place for everyone, and maybe it wasn't talked about, or maybe and in oral histories it wasn't mentioned because it wasn't necessary. But when they start to write our histories, people, because it's coming from a point of view after the missionaries arrive and the Western culture imposes, they tell these things, but they omit stuff, or they don't tell the full story. So we don't get that during that period. But I'm sure that, from my grandparents and my great-grandparents, that love for all the children was always there. And it was only after we lose our lāhui there's a Māhūi also. It becomes a scapegoat for everything else that happens. And I think that we've had to revisit that, relearn that we have a part in the lāhui. And it's because, you know, the sovereignty movement could not start, would not have happened without hula and the olelo, okay? And that was carried on by Mahu, you know. I'm not going to out anybody that's still alive, but you know, George Naope, Sam Kalei, these are hula teachers. And they had a place and they were respected, you know. But because they kept that language and our olelo and our mo'olelo alive, in the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, when people were looking, you know, trying to figure out, you know, we're Kanaka Maoli, but we're at the bottom of the earnings, people in up to the top of people in prisons. What is wrong with this picture? And so they go back and they find inspiration in our mo'olelo, in our hula and things, and they become, that consciousness is born. So the sovereignty movement is born out of that papa that was laid by those that come before us, because if it wasn't there, people would be grabbing things out of the atmosphere. But they could look to the lepo, see the hula feet going, and know that they had a lāhui. So when they start to protest Kaho'olawe, Kalama Valley, all of these things comes not out of just because it was there to protest. Those things were always happening. The colonization, imperialization of our islands, but they take their inspiration from those that came before, and that helps them to move forward, to say, okay, we did have a nation, we did have all these things, we're trying to regain that. I think so that in the lāhui, what happens is that the Māhūi is kind of left behind. You know, you had the up until now, when you see someone like Tina, strong, powerful woman there, that people are recognizing, okay, this has happened. So that I think that there is a place for both to intertwine and to make it beneficial for all of us.
Absolutely. And
can I?
Yes, please.
Okay. So you know, I really want to kind of expand on what Uncle said, and to me, it's two things. One is we just really have to emphasize that this, you know, still in our community, but all over the world, right? Every single community, every single group is Māhūi. We're everywhere, right? So the idea that there's something deviant or unusual or whatever is like we're everywhere in every single culture. So it cannot be that cannot be true, right? But then the other thing is that you know, for those in our lāhui who disdain Māhū and the Māhūi, they are colonized. Our own people are colonized, right? So in order to really be free, so to me, sovereignty is about freedom and it's about liberation. So if we believe in this, we want our people and we want our culture to be free and to be liberated from the shackles of colonization and really and imperialism and Christianity, right? No offense, right, to anybody who's Christian, but it is a big part of this value judgment about being Māhū. There's something sick about you. I mean, people still believe this, right? But it's like, for me and for our people, we have to remember that sovereignty is about self-determination. It's about empowerment. It's about freedom. And all of those things rest in the hearts and spirits of the Māhūi. That we are that. We exemplify that we live according to who we are as Hawaiians, as Māhū, as people who love our culture and our community and honor our ancestors and our practices. So I think what Uncle is saying is that not only are we still here today, like the whole thing is that we're still here today in spite of colonization. Why? Because we're Hawaiian, because Hawaiians have this sense of groundedness in Keakua, Naakua, in all our environment, right? And that to me is what sovereignty is about. It's not just about citizenship and land reclamation. It's about self-determination. And all of us here, Koko and Uncle and me, and you too, Ākea, is that we're here because we have determined for ourselves that we want to be free. We don't want to live under the powers, right, of these old systems that have nothing to do with Hawaiianness, right? It has to do with hatred. It has to do with constraining people. It has to do with judging people. It has to do with all the things that are not Hawaiian. So if we believe that sovereignty is what we want for ourselves and our people, it means that we embrace all of us in all that we are, good, bad, ugly, whatever's, right? But it's really about everything is good, right? So ugly is like what ugly is, right? Which is, it's all in however you think ugly is and what is not, right? Bad is like bad in a context of, and it's relative, right? What I'm doing might be bad to you, but not to anybody else. Right? Or it might be bad to me, but nobody else thinks what I'm doing is wrong. So why even think that way, right? We have to think in the positive, and our resiliencies and our strengths and our beauty and our tremendous artistry. We're so smart. We sailed a canoe around the world, in this time, you know? And then we also had internet and Wi-Fi. We're communicating around the world. Come on now, nobody else can do that. Only Hawaiians can do that. So this is the thing, like we have to hold up our culture and our people for who we are. We cannot let anybody determine who we are. This is what sovereignty is, that we determine who we are as individuals, and it's filled with love and pono in everything we do. That's how sovereignty will come, by a belief in freedom that's about love, with it's aloha and pono. Those two things exemplify to me what sovereignty should be for all of us. So it means the lāhui is the Māhūi. The Māhūi is the lāhui.
Wow. I'm shook. And shake me even more, Mama Coco, because I'm about to be like on the floor, just like.
I don't know. There's a lot to unpack from our eke.
Yeah, truly.
And someone had just commented in Facebook where oppression is ugly, and that's very true. White-centric thinking and religion, and these people that came from the outside world into the world of Kanaka Maoli. I mean, they're probably the greatest magicians on the planet. They have tricked so many cultures. They have performed the greatest magic trick in the world, and that is to conquer and divide. And I think with Kanaka Maoli and the Māhūi, that's exactly what they did. They cut through the lāhui and separated Māhūi from the rest of the ropu, the rest of the lāhui. And that created this tension, and it created this divide, and then this generational kind of scarring. That's where we have lost that sense of Hawaiianness, of being Kanaka. And but as Mahu, we will always be the same. Our radius is exponential. It's everywhere. It's anywhere, up and down, on the side, behind the trash can, on the throne, you know, in the truck, driving a Lexus, who knows?
In the pit lounge forever.
They will touch everything. And I think we spoke like a couple sessions ago about how the church really took advantage of the Mahu. Mahu were always the one that did the cooking for the church, did the cleaning for the church, had to organize everything for the church, had to do all these things regarding church. And then when it was time for church to support Mahu, maybe not. It was never a definitive, like, we honor you, we uplift you, we respect you. It was almost seen as, I guess, to use the word slavery, in the sense where Māhūi were, you know, basically slaves to this kind of this Western sense of thinking, this Western white-centric kind of, and yeah. I don't want to go.
No.
I'm actually having a fabulous day today. So, but
Yes.
yeah. So I think for the Māhūi, we will always be strong. We will always support the lāhui no matter what they think of us, no matter if they look down upon us. We know our place in society. Like Kealoha was saying, that's why it's not in the historical writings of our mo'olelo. It was commonplace for Māhūi. It was not seen as this kind of thing that's deviant.
Yep.
It was not seen. That there was no such thing as Māhūi. They were just as important in the society as a whole in Kanaka culture. And as soon as the outside comes in and starts to chip away at that, then we're stripped naked. And then that's when we become exposed. And then that's when people take advantage of us. When we're at our weakest and our most vulnerable. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah.
So I hope that we, those that are in the lāhui, recognize us, and I'm sure that's the case for those that are, you know, like Nainoa Tom said, most of those involved in the navigational movement, the Olelo, people that are in the Olelo community also. Hopefully they're including that in the curriculum, you know, that the language doesn't discriminate, that there's no reason. We speak the words of love, and the words of our kupuna, and it has no place for hatred. There's no place for hatred in our Olelo. So I'm sure there's those. There's this small segment of the Hawaiian community, the primo warriors that are still out there and making themselves heard or seen. But it's all a matter of education. I think as we educate ourselves, we open up ourselves to panels like this. More people hear our mana'o, more people share that mana'o, more people are empowered. Is the idea of, you know, self governing, that govern yourself, and then also your community, help them to govern themselves and be a part of that. Then we move forward. You know, we have been moving step by step through the years, and if we continue to do so by taking advantage of us, not taking advantage of us, but using the Māhūi as part of the lāhui to say this, yeah, we are talented peoples, and we're all in this ba'a together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's really about re-educating our own lāhui about where we are and where we come from. And that's what I think as Māhūi, that is what our ike is, to remind our lāhui, this is what we used to be, this is what we should be, and this is where we should be going. We need to re-educate. We need to, like Dr. Kalei said, we need to take those chains off. We need to strip away all those layers and just re-educate, not occupy space, but reclaim those spaces. We need to reclaim. There's so much to reclaim. Occupy is that sense of Western colonization. We don't want to occupy. We want to reclaim. When we talk about land ownership, that's white-centric thinking. Kanaka never had a sense of owning the land. We were caretakers, cultivators of the land. That was our papa, our mama. That's what land was to us, the ʻāina. We didn't own anything. We were not here to own. And that's when people started to come in and take over and started to own. I mean, even now we look at things that they're building, these skyscrapers. Who can own those things? Foreigners are still coming in and owning.
Yes.
Owning. We need to reclaim these spaces, reclaim our culture, reclaim our people, and re-educate.
Period.
You know, I also want to say that, you know, for those who are listening, but just kind of remind ourselves that this disrespect and non-inclusion of the Māhūi is killing our mo'opuna, right? So this is well documented, again, across cultures, but definitely in the United States, that among youth who attempt or commit suicide, it's the majority of these youth are struggling with their sexual identity, their gender identity. And this kind of hasn't changed, even as much as there's been an embracing of all, you know, all different sexualities and gender identities. Still, the young people who are choosing to leave this time and this place and their community are those who just do not feel accepted because they want to be, and like for me, it's like you want to love yourself and you want to love others, right? But when they say, no, girl gotta love boy and boy gotta love girl, and you gotta dress like a girl if you're a girl, I mean, all these kind of things, it's about the binary, right? We're killing our children by believing in these things. So it's okay if you don't like us, but try to think about the generations ahead, because when you and your, you know, and this is especially for us Kanakas, yeah, that you don't have to accept us, okay? But when you have these values and beliefs, you're saying that you do not accept the perpetuation of our people and our culture, because you are saying to the next generation of children, if you let that, we don't want you. You cannot be part of our community. You cannot be part of my ohana. You are not part of our movement towards sovereignty because something's wrong with you. You act like that. So, you know, to me, this is about the perpetuation of our people and our koko. Is that this is going to kill us if you cannot get yourselves around and away from these beliefs that are, they're so wrong, but they are so un-Hawaiian. That's how I feel. Like it's like, you know, it's so un-Hawaiian to treat other people like this, but your own koko, your own ohana, you would treat like this. We can't do this. We will never be free if we treat our children this way, you know? So to me, it's always like, I think about the mo'opuna, you know, Kealoha and I are not going to be around that much longer, but we want to make space, yeah, so that the gravel turn to road. You know, I actually red carpet.
You'll be here forever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Coco, red carpet for our mo'opuna, right? No gravel, no even like you know, road.
That's
red carpet.
Right. We are providing, we as Lāhui have to provide a pu'uhonua, a refuge for all, to understand that from baby time, you love your mo'opuna, you love them. Then why do you turn your backs on them after they exhibit certain things? That's not what to do. And if you can't do it, then you have to let somebody else come in and help to nurture your child. And we as educators, storytellers, and things like that have to impress upon others that for our kamali'i, our children, to give them that space, give them that time to grow.
Period. And speaking of, I just got a little message, breaking news. So Kumulani Teves, who is a Queer Kānaka professor at UH for Women's Studies, she is looking for a student who might be interested in a graduate assistantship. If there are any Queer Kānaka out there who are interested in come to grad school, getting paid to do it, and then exploring your own Māhūi and helping the Māhūi, please email her. And the email is TEVESSTE, that's Teves, stay, at Hawaiʻi.edu, or look up Dr. Lenny Teves, who is an amazing, amazing defiant indigeneity, amazing, featuring Mama Coco as well in that book. So there's so many great points, and I just wanted to talk about, especially with Lā Hoʻihoʻi Ea, we always think of our kings and we think of our ali'i as these people that in a time where missionaries are telling them to do certain things and act a certain way, very prim and proper. Ko'i Keoli, who's known to say ua mau ki o ka ʻāina pono, had his own partner, a same-sex partner, Komi, and received a lot of backlash for it, because at a time where it's like, no, follow this European way and all the other kids at the table will accept you, right? You play the part of this table, then I guess you can sit with us. But really no kind of conversations about, well, let's just build our own table. That's like, we don't have to sit over there with them. And I think a lot of that isn't talked about. We think of Kamehameha the Third, yes, but also knowing that our ali'i, people who are so respected, can have both heterosexual relations and homosexual relations and express that without it ever canceling each other out. Even our akua, like you said, Anakala about Hopoi and Hi'iaka. Even Pele herself had aikane and female partners in our mo'olo. It's there, it's in the new pepa. But somehow we always have to question, who is it that's actually telling the story? Were they a part of that genealogy, or are they just kind of picking and choosing? Oh, yeah, no. You don't do that, yeah? Even in our dictionary, America Benepukui, the entry for aikane, one of it is to practice sodomy, which is completely different from, and let's say maybe a Christian missionary example of aikane versus to have an intimate relationship, sexual, non-sexual, with a person. There's just so many layers, and not just it's disgusting in the Bible, Sodom and Gomorrah, you'll be burning in hell for it. And so really what I'm getting from all three of you is like, it's just a completely different genealogy of Ike and understanding. And we have to question, how are we enabling colonization happening right now? How am I continuing that? I might not have a Bible in my hand, but how are those kind of mana'o that have been planted in me, how am I enabling it? And that takes you really doing the work to be like, what is that? What's the infection in there? And if I don't treat it, I'm going to keep chugging it out there, plugging it in to people. So until we can treat not just the symptom, but the actual infection, it ain't gonna be working. So take your antibiotics, people.
Take that shot.
Take it.
I got my mole right here.
Get your la'o. Get your la'o. But a part of that la'o, not the physical, but also the spiritual, emotional, cultural la'o. What is that? And it's having ea, like this ea is that la'o, is what I'm hearing all of you say. The ea to really just have that deep aloha for ʻāina, for Kānaka, for the lāhui, for the Māhūi, and just have that and not come from a place of, as Coco says, the boxes, not a storage unit. Unpack the boxes. Yeah.
I think we have to encourage in everyday life, give people an opportunity to express themselves. And I think we have to make ourselves known to the larger community. Okay? They look at us as a boogeyman, you know, those that are saying, oh, we don't, you know, we're turning our backs on Christianity. We want to take back our land and all of this. But to make them be comfortable with who we are as a people. And the way to do that is to sometimes be out there and in their face, but you know, through small things like Olelo Hawaii is the second language. You know, who uses it on an everyday basis? I mean, I think we started like we had Aloha Fridays. You know, you wear Aloha clothing. Maybe we have Olelo Fridays. So that if you go into a bank, you go to your doctor, you go to any government office and they speak Olelo, even if it's simple, a few words. And if you get people to be comfortable with the language, then they'll understand, well, the language is the root and it's such a beautiful language. There must be something to the culture. And that the culture is not trying to overtake everybody. We're just trying to, as Coco said, is to reclaim, to have that, to be in charge of our own destinies, you know, to make them understand that. So I think that in schools, curriculum that can be based on, you know, small ways to say, these are some of the values we want to carry forth that were values of our lāhui. Just the Olympics. We had the Olympics. If we had like the nation of Hawaiʻi represented, you know, Carissa Moore would have won a gold for the volleyball players. Things like that, you know, get us out there to say, you know, we're not just ku'e, but we're doing daily things to make our presence there and to know them, not to be afraid of that presence. You shouldn't be maka'u. You should be embracing what we embrace, because we embrace you.
Absolutely. We know your language and we have to be really good at it. So we're official. And to quote the late Haunani K. Trask, that our culture is not ornamental. It's not just a aloha shirt and a Kalei, but it's every day. It's like you're saying, anakala mahalo for that. Mahalo. Mama Coco, you had something? Oh no, okay. Yeah, I thought I saw you unmuted. Okay.
I don't think I have.
Okay.
I had something that came and it went.
And then the Holoku train is here.
You should see Coco standing on a train as the mo'ok, the mo'oina right across the stage. Yeah.
All the mo'o are born from me.
That was,
period.
Yeah, it was.
That's amazing. Now, I don't know if we have any questions from our audience. We could keep going, but we are about out in an hour and a half. I promised my panelists that we'd stop there. But do we have any questions from Facebook, from our Zoom? Just wanted to double check. Getting a chat now. Oh, that was just a comment. We had a comment saying, I love that question of how am I perpetuating colonization in my thinking? There's so much for us as Kanaka walking into this world to unlearn and relearn. Exactly. Unlearning and relearning is just as important as learning. This conversation is powerful. Mahalo nui for all the Ike gems. We're giving all the gems. The Mancala board is just like all the gems on this.
No kau'oli.
All right. I'm just double checking for our wonderful tech group. Do we have any questions from audiences, or, you know, if you're in the audience, please give us something. No questions on Facebook at this time. All mahalos. Okay, we got a question from Miss Momi Cummings from a millennial Mahu. Thank you. What mana'a would you like to leave us with as we take up the work of building the path? Ooh, yes. What is those kind of final kahuna, kuhi pu'eone, and the heiau to be like, oh, you can build that over there, you can go over there. What are some kuhi you could give the next kind of generation ready to do the work? Love that.
Well, I can start. I would say that, you know, I'm going back to what Anakala said about education. Right. I mean, that's my thing right now, is that there's so much mistruth and misinformation, just wrong things, right? Yeah. And there's nothing like just learning the truth of people's stories and histories. That's it. Like once you hear it, you know that it will speak to you as the truth is. Yeah. And so for me, I always say, like, never take anything for granted. You know, like if your teacher told you that, or your mama or whoever, that doesn't mean that's really the whole thing, right? So to me, it's always go look around, you know, and see whether or not what you've been told or what you've been assumed to be true, or whether or not that's some people's truth, but not everybody's truth or experience. So the number one thing to me is always search out different ways of knowing, right? And Hawaiians were really good at that, right? But part of it is we live close to the environment. So we always were looking at the wind and the stars, the sun, the angles of the sun and the moon, you know, the tide. I mean, so we were so mindful of everything that could teach us things. But, you know, now we only like, you know, read the book or look at our Google or whatever. Yeah. And so I just think part of it is just search out all kinds of different ways of knowing and people's different experiences. So I think that's the first thing. And then I would say the last thing for me, I think, is that it's really hard to really let go of the power of white supremacy and its influence on colonization, right? I mean, we look now at what's happening around the police, right? And police surveillance and police killings of people, primarily brown and Black people. And nobody kind of has really put out enough that, you know, how the police function is based on slavery. You know, so you know, Sam, I'm so glad you said that, because that's what the police, policing started to catch the slaves who were running for freedom. So everything is done now is based on that model of policing, which is catch those brown people who are doing bad things, which is running for freedom, right? So you're shooting a Black boy in the back because what? He's trying to run away from you because he didn't do nothing, and then you shoot him. Okay, so part of it is to just get a grip now. That's what Auntie Malia used to always say, get a grip, right? Which is really try to find out what is the root of this thing, and is it really what you think? Like, you know. So I think that's it. That's part of it, is to be critical. So look out for all kind of different ways of knowing, and then be very critical about it, and really ask yourself, who wrote that story? That's what Anakala said too, right? Who wrote that story? Was it a Hawaiian? Was it somebody who lived with and knows Hawaiians, or was it somebody who was working on a dissertation in Nebraska? Yeah. Right. So you gotta just be critical. That's it. Don't take anything for granted. That's what makes you a full person. And I just want to close with the fact that I think the Māhūi, to me, represents the most free in our community. That is, I think, you know, as Coco says, like, you just knew that this is who you were, and you were going to live that free life that you knew to be yourself. And I think this is one of the things that in the Māhūi, we had no choice. This is who we are, and you know, you can suppress it, you can go get, you know, conversion counseling or whatever, but this thing going sneak out no matter what. So I feel like we represent true sovereignty, because we live who we are. We live a free life of who we are, even though we're going to get put down and laughed at or whatever, we still do it. And to me, that is true liberation, is that you fight for yourself. You fight for what's true to who you are. And so that's what I think we have to do, is to be brave, you know, and fight for yourself and for the generations to come. That's all we have. That's all we have. So.
Love it.
I love it too. To millennials, I'll just say, you have all the tools there. You know, I'm still trying to figure out Zoom. But you guys are way ahead of us who came before. So use those tools, and use those tools to further education, further the education of those around you. But also to remember that our people are a patient people. If it didn't work out the first time, they figured out how to do it the second time or the third time. So keep that in mind, because I know millennials want it done yesterday and the day before, but don't give up, you know. So to say, go forward.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think in response to that, those tools had to be made for us, and that's those generations that came before us. I mean, those things or those items had to come from somewhere, and all those things come from the ʻāina, come from the land. And it took that thinking or that mana'o to conceive or conceptualize building something like an o'o, this kind of digging stick. And then slowly by slowly, this toolbox, all these tools are being put into that toolbox. And you, Kealoha, and you, Doctor, I mean, those generations, they are now giving those tools to us to utilize the efficiency of not having to relearn. But maybe that's what has to happen, is we have to re-educate, like this kind of process of building these things that help support and help cultivate the lāhui, and then use those in a way that it, you know, it's beneficial to everyone. We don't think about, oh, we got to build this house to house ourselves. We think about building this whare or this hale as a means of creating space for community to come and, you know, take part of this house. I think there was a question about how can non-Kanaka support the Māhūi, and honestly, in my opinion about that, maybe it's not time for you to support us. Maybe you have to. Maybe it's time for you to sit back and watch and know your place and learn from us, because we will always be occupying this space, or we will always be in this space. And maybe you have to sit back, and we don't need your handouts right now, I think. What we need for you is to recognize who we are, because we know who we are as Māhūi. I think you don't know who you, I don't think you know who we know that you know. You think you know, but you don't know. You don't know. You think
So great.
that you think by uplifting us is doing something for you. It's not doing something for you, and it's not doing something for us. That's your thinking. Oh, I gotta support the Māhūi. I gotta lift them up. No thanks.
No, we never asked. We never asked.
Oh, no, we never asked. We never asked.
But you have to be wary of those who want to take more of what we are and who we are. We cannot let that happen, you know.
We cannot let that happen.
And we have kokua people who are in the lāhui and the Māhūi or are non-Kanaka. So we don't want to discourage, and those who've shown their heart for us, who are
their heart. But when it's time, we will let them know.
Yes.
When it's time, we will let them know. We will invite them into our house, into our hale. When it's time, you can come. Maybe.
Never show up unannounced. Do not show up unannounced. You gotta only make sure we know you're coming.
We are still fixing all of those things that have been
Still cleaning, still cooking.
We are still cleaning the hare, girl. That whare nui is still being cleaned.
Absolutely.
We are getting rid of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cleaning house, and this is exactly it. Let us do that.
And when it's clean, you can come and sit down on the floor with me. You will come and sit on the floor with me, and we will all be on that same level. Close to the land, close to the ground, because that's how we were always. We were always close to the ground.
Absolutely.
We never have the hole. We never have all that kind of stuff. Everybody sat on the ground. Everyone was equal.
Yeah.
Ali'i and maka-ʻāina na together.
Absolutely.
So,
and you see those in the photos.
Yes. Yes. And be fabulous.
Yeah.
Just be fabulous and just be loving. Just be kind and respectful. Yeah.
And she's like, and sip. Mahalo nui loa. We are over time, so we want to close it out, but I'm just so blown away by all the ʻike that has been shared. I hope I'm sure the audience is like, I will get so many messages of love and hearts and just so empowered. I'm so ole lava ka mahalo I ko ele mai. Mahalo nui loa. It's this has been so beneficial, and I hope that each of you out there have taken a little Ike gem, if you will, to help construct the path for the next generations to come. Again, I want to mahalo each for panelists.
All right.
For being here and being present, taking some time. And yeah, so with that, if you have any questions, you can still reach out to our video on Facebook, email Lā Hoʻihoʻi Ea, and we can get people in contact to answer anything. Dr. Kalei has to leave. She has to go now and pick up her kids. So mahalo. Thank you, Dr. Kalei.
So much. Aloha. Good to see you, Coco and Kealoha.
Hi.
Okay. Any other words from our lovely panelists?
No, thank you for this opportunity to share. I learned a lot. And thank you, Coco, for acknowledging Dr. Kalei and my age.
Honestly,
so respectful to the kupuna.
You're only 22.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Ahuiho, thank you so much for joining us. We'll play a little music to sign us out. And that's it. Mahalo.
Hi.